Ever since men have had eyes to see, they've been looking at one another, and have often recalled absent faces by means of carvings or drawings. We can tell something of the appearance and character of an individual from out of the past by looking through the eyes of an artist, perhaps long forgotten. Even a chance doodle may be expressive. Which of us has not tried to draw faces? This is Joyce Deal, of whom I hope to get a likeness. A portrait is a portrait only if it suggests the subject. No one, moreover, likes to wind up under any such ignominious title as Girl in a White Dress or Character Study. While there could be careful considerations of composition, we are more interested today in the mere drawing of a likeness. We shall begin, then, by placing the face in the center and making it large enough to see clearly. As there are many angles from which a face may be viewed, I have to determine the most becoming or characteristic one. Then I draw an ellipse. This will orientate the face and features, and thus prevent the frequent mistake of having the eyes pointing one way, the nose another, and the mouth somewhere else. Now is a good time to set aside all the old wives' tales. The body is 7½ heads high. The eyes are halfway from the chin to the top knot, and so forth. There is no standard person. An eye line run through the inner corners, or tear ducts, will serve to give the level of the eyes. Now locate them on this line, watching the comparative size of the eyes themselves and of the gap between them. This is easier for anyone trained to gauge comparative distances. Carpenters, dressmakers, and open-field runners should do it well. Note the change of expression, as by animation I move the eyes, making them high at the outer corners or low. The shape of the upper lid may be curved, and the highest point in this curve may be at its center, near the tear duct, or towards the outer corner. The wrinkle where the upper lid folds back may be high, low, or not visible at all, and the eye may be rectangular, flat on top, or triangular. The iris may be large or small, and either entirely exposed, as with many Mediterranean people, or it may be partly covered by the lid. Since habits in drawing, as well as in living, form so easily, you should guard against them. The long necks and pointed chins of one painter, the chalky complexion of another, or the misty eyes of a third. Not only does the more distant eye seem less wide than the near one, but even on a flat paper it has an entirely different shape. Early in the mapping of the face, we should locate the jog between the eyebrows. This four-sided figure, or keystone, here drawn on the face for demonstration only, varies as much in different individuals as any proper feature. While it may be wide, narrow, or tall, It changes into a mere jog as the face turns into profile position. It almost never starts at the level of the eyes, but is often higher by a quarter of an inch or more. Since the keystone is a flat plane, as is the bridge of the nose, these lines are merely indications to show the position of the planes. Here are the forehead and nose planes of this particular face, and now I compare the nose angle with the lip to chin line. Between each is a jog, the keystone and the underside of the nose. There are also planes of the neck and jaw. On this other face, the angles differ not only from one another, but from other lines in the same head, and are entirely different from the angles of any other person. There are no two of us alike. Compare these lines with any vertical in the background. In transferring them to paper, use the edge of the drawing board to replace the vertical as a basis for comparison. To draw them, make a pass in the air, and you'll find that the plane of the bridge of the nose is about at this angle. The nostril may be either higher or lower than the tip of the nose, or level with it. Mouths may be thought of as having 5 puffs, one of which shows the upper lip overlapping the lower. The lower lip has 2 puffs on either side, sometimes with a crack or indented place between them. The risorius, or the muscle that retracts the corners of the mouth, has varying angles. As with the eyes, the 2 sides of the mouth will vary when a face turns away from us, the nearer one, of course, being larger. These variations, in turn, all relate to one another, including the cleft in the upper lip, that of the thickness of both upper and lower lips, and the crease which sometimes shows under the lower lip. The mouth is not inscribed on a flat pan, but fits over the dental arch, which curves and is as variable as the words that may come out of it. Since we've left the original ellipse unchanged, like an egg, our sketch looks like one of the man in the moon. If we consider the face again as a series of planes, we can slice the egg to make it more like the model. First, locate the widest part of the cheekbone and the corner of the jaw. These vary not only with a sitter, but with the way she sits. Do not require your model to sit too still, or you will lose the feeling of form and third dimension. While we are well aware that the skull rests on the end of the spinal column, it is difficult to locate this point. Notice that the fingers do not move as the head nods. This is because the ear holes mark its point of attachment. Most important, then, is the location of the ears. Lack of time prevents us from further discussion of anatomy and also from any consideration of feeling and design. I have used no shading, as that will vary with the medium and is covered in another film. The purpose of this film will have been accomplished if I have helped you to realize anew the extraordinary differences that there are in faces, and have encouraged you to compare angles with other angles, as well as dimensions with other dimensions. Do not attempt at first to combine character reading with portrait painting, but be content to try for a likeness and to avoid some of the habit-forming mistakes that can so easily enslave us when drawing a portrait.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. That was a nice, relaxing film. Kind of reminiscent of Bob Ross. I oftentimes watch I'm sure lots of people watch his little painting episodes. Very tranquil, calm, and you feel like you're getting something done watching them. So this was a series that Encyclopedia Britannica distributed. This is a series of different ones with different artists doing things like that. So, so yesterday the copyright hammer came down pretty hard via Facebook because one of the films I showed was from 1984 and featured prominently Huey Lewis in the news, and I tried to stop it as quickly as I could, but it just slammed it shut, and I was scrambling to mute it, but it was too late. So I apologize to the Facebook people that were like, "What happened to the stream?" Because I kind of didn't see it crap out. I saw the numbers drop, but I didn't correlate because I was busy trying to keep Huey Lewis from shutting down other streams. So hopefully today we won't encounter any Huey Lewis, but who knows, man? Who knows? It's kind of fascinating, frustrating, but fascinating nonetheless to deal with things like that, and to like quickly when I hear the song, I'm like, oh crap, and like run and try to mute it. So some of you that were listening on YouTube, you're probably going like, why is it going in and out? And YouTube did eventually flag it, but they didn't remove it. They just said, hey, we're going to put ads up because we want to pay Huey Lewis or Huey Lewis's recording label. All right, anyways, next we're going to watch a film about ecology from the 70s. So here we go. What is an ecologist? Or what do ecologists do?
Once there were bald eagles in many parts of the United States. But now, most of them are gone. Their nests are empty. Scientists, called ecologists, wanted to learn why. They found that eagles' eggs were not hatching. The ecologists learned that this was caused by certain poisoned sprays used to kill insects that eat important plants. The poisons don't break down. So, every time a field was sprayed, the amount of poison in the soil grew larger. Animals living there picked up some of the poison. Some of the remaining poison ran off into streams and lakes and got into the organisms, or living things, there. Even the smallest organisms took up the poison. Each time a small fish ate one of these organisms, it took almost all the poison from it into its own body. And each fish ate many of the smaller organisms. When crayfish or larger fish ate the smaller fish, they got the poison. And when even larger fish ate the crayfish, smaller fish, or poisoned insects that fell into the water, the poisons were passed on. Since the poisons did not break down or pass out of the animals' bodies, and since big animals ate many smaller ones, the concentration of poisons got stronger and stronger in each larger animal. Eagles eat mostly dead fish, which usually have the most poison. As a result, the concentration of poisons became very high in eagles. It wasn't high enough to kill the big birds, but it was high enough to keep their eggs from hatching. If this continues, there soon may not be any more eagles. we will not only lose our national bird, but also a way of removing dead animals. And if it happens to the eagle, couldn't it happen to other animals, including man? Might not the death of the eagle tell us that something is wrong with the balance of nature? In order to find out, we must look at how organisms act on each other and their surroundings, called the environment. This is what ecology is all about. How living things act or depend on one another and on the environment. And ecologists are scientists who study these relationships. Ecologists need to know many things, like what kinds of organisms are in an environment, how many of each kind there are, and how much these numbers change. Ecologists also must learn how big and how old the organisms are. They need to know about the life of each kind of organism, what they eat, how they move, how many young they produce each year, how fast they grow, how long they live, what other organisms they interact with or depend upon, and what environment they like or can live in. Ecologists also need to know something about the environment. It takes many ecologists doing different things to obtain all this information. And it's not easy. For example, ecologists would like to gather up all the organisms in an environment, find out what they are, count them, and measure them. But they can't. Why not? There are simply too many places in an environment where organisms can live, and too many living things in each place. Also, many animals move fast or are hard to catch. And finally, if ecologists gathered up all of the organisms, they would destroy the system they are studying. Instead, ecologists collect organisms from several small areas in different parts of the environment and then guess or estimate how many are in the entire environment. This is called sampling. One way of sampling the organisms on land is to mark off certain sized areas in different places and then collect, identify, count, and measure all the organisms in these areas. The small plants can be cut down and preserved, but the large trees are measured and identified where they are. Most animals are simply picked up, sifted from the soil, or caught in nets. But how can ecologists collect bigger or faster moving animals? This ecologist is setting out a wire trap with a funnel-like door so a snake can easily get in, but can't easily get out. A screen fence guides the snake into the trap. Ecologists use different kinds of traps. This one has a hinged lid that closes when an animal moves the trigger. Traps work better when something is used to attract the animals to them. What could be used to attract animals? Weighing and measuring an organism also gives some idea of how old it is. How else can ecologists find out how old an organism is? The age of a tree, for example, can be determined by drilling into the trunk and removing a small sample or core. There is usually one line or growth ring in the wood for each year the tree has been alive. By counting the lines, ecologists can tell about how old the tree is. Similarly, each ring or line on the plate of a box turtle shell is usually equal to 1 year's growth. Aside from determining the age, size, number, and kind of animals captured, ecologists often mark and release the animals they catch. When the same marked animals are captured again, it gives some idea of how good the trapping is. Ecologists also need to know about the life cycle or life history of the organisms they study. They can start by reading what other scientists have already written about these organisms. But sometimes there isn't enough written information, and the ecologist must either watch the organisms in nature or grow them in a laboratory. If he raises them in a laboratory, he can change the environmental conditions to see how this affects each stage of the organism's growth. For instance, seeds can be heated or cooled for different lengths of time to see how well they grow at different temperatures. Or animals can be placed in a container where they are given a choice of foods or of temperatures to see which they like best. Watching animals in nature can be difficult and can take lots of time, so ecologists often use other methods. For example, they can find out how much food and what kinds of food an animal eats by looking in the stomachs of many individuals. They can find out where an animal goes by attaching a spool of thread to the animal. The thread unwinds when the animal moves, leaving a well-marked trail. Or they can attach a small radio transmitter to an animal. The radio sends back beeps, which can be picked up by a radio receiver with a directional antenna. When the antenna is turned toward the radio transmitter, the beeps get louder. By moving the antenna around, an ecologist can tell where the animal is. Ecologists must also study the non-living things and conditions in an environment. These non-living things include air, soil, and water. Ecologists use different instruments to measure conditions of these non-living things. For instance, thermometers tell how hot or cold the air or water or soil is. And chemical tests can tell what kinds of substances are in the air, soil, or water. When ecologists study the relationships between organisms and their environment, they must include man. Because of all living things, man has the greatest power to change his environment. Almost everything that man does changes the environment. A big part of the ecologist's work is to find out how man can avoid making mistakes that would harm the environment and how to correct some of the mistakes man has already made. For example, the water hyacinth was brought into the United States because it's pretty. But it grew and spread so rapidly that it filled many rivers and lakes in the South. Chemicals to poison the plants are now being sprayed on lakes and rivers. But this can hurt other organisms. Might there not be a better way of getting rid of water hyacinths? Some ecologists have suggested bringing in manatees and other water animals to eat the hyacinths. But maybe these animals will become pests themselves. Other ecologists have suggested gathering the hyacinths with big machines and feeding the plants to cattle. Both ways are now being tried in certain areas to see which might be best. Ecologists also play an important role in fighting man-made pollution. Pollution is usually thought of as so much of some chemical substance in the air, water, or soil that it is harmful to organisms in that environment. Ecologists can tell us if water is polluted by finding out what organisms are in it. By pouring harmless colored dye in a polluted stream, they can find out where the water goes, even if it goes underground, because the dye will show up when the water comes back out of the ground. This helps ecologists locate the source of water pollution so they can help stop it. The work of ecologists is important to the health and survival of all living things on Earth, including man himself.
Yeah, somebody commented that the harmonica is the folksy environmental thing that's going to clues you into that fact. Something's going to be folksy. It's a fascinating film. It would have been something that I would have shown. It was probably from the mid-'70s. Something I would have shown during the series I did called The Last Time We Were Green, which is basically talking about that time in the 70s that we were concerned about pollution. And mostly pollution that we could see or smell, and not so much about invisible pollution. And so that's what's kind of interesting about what's getting us now. So, for example, there are lots of films about litter and about seeing physical things. So, the industry has created these biodegradable or photodegradable, paper and plastics, and so they dissolve, so you can't see them. But what's happening is they're making their way through ecosystems, and so you have animals that now have their organs are filled with these little microscopic plastics, and likewise, so they scrub the cloud, the smog, the thing that you can actually see, but it's leaving carbon dioxide and methane and things that you can't see. And so those are the things that are causing problems with climate change. So it's just interesting to kind of see how that changed. And then the other thing is the fact that this was a big thing in the 70s and then suddenly, poof, disappeared in the 80s. So there you go. There's your history lesson. So here's a film about shoplifting. We always love films about shoplifting. Here we go.
My girlfriend and I would go shopping, and sometimes when we saw something we really wanted, we'd take it.
About how many times did this happen before?
About 4.
Sure it was only 4?
Yeah, just about that many times.
What was your friend's name?
Do I have to tell?
I really think that it might be a good idea if you did tell.
Glenda.
What's Glenda's last name?
Jackson.
Does she go to school with you?
I told them all about it, and about the other things I took. And I began to feel a little cleaner again, for the first time since I met Glenda.
Me and my friend was in another store.
Sally, that's neat. How much is it?
Too much.
Take it. Take it. Go on, it's easy, it's fun.
Made easy for you. I'm scared.
Go on, I dare you. Don't be a baby all your life.
What if they catch me?
They won't. I'll go keep her busy. Toy dolls and a blue suit in your toy department?
It's right there.
I didn't want my girlfriend to think I was chicken, so I took it. And that time I didn't get caught. How lucky can you get, I thought. If I'd only known, it was the unluckiest thing that could ever have happened to me.
You guys, guess what my instructor taught us today?
What's that?
How to, like, throw a guy bigger than you.
That's pretty good.
How do you like that?
I like
Want
it.
my right ice cream?
You really mean it?
Yeah.
All right.
Can I be excused?
I didn't have much appetite at dinner that night. I couldn't wait to get into my room, where I hid the purse I stole that afternoon. Funny, it didn't look so good now, and I wondered why I ever wanted it.
How many times have I told you to knock before coming in? But you said you'd help me with my arithmetic. In a little while. Go on now.
What I remember was how funny it made me feel when I did it, and how fast I was breathing, and how my mouth got dry. It was like I passed a test or something. And after that, Glenda became my best friend. We went out every afternoon shopping together. Glenda wasn't afraid of the TV camera. She said she had a system for beating it. It got so stealing little stuff wasn't so exciting anymore, so we went after bigger things, and for a few times we got away with it.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, darling. Where have you been?
Oh, over Glenda's doing her homework.
Oh, where did you get the blouse?
Oh, I borrowed it from Glenda.
It looks practically new.
Yeah, it is.
Lying is just like stealing. The more you do it, the easier it seems to get. This afternoon, Glenda was going after a blouse she really wanted, and I went along as a lookout. I thought it was all clear, so I gave her the signal. What we didn't know is the blouse had a secret electronic tag on it, and it set off a signal when she walked off without paying for it.
Sure. You always feel? How many things you got in here? Didn't you hear the bell go off? We got it. Come on, let's go.
She didn't seem so sure of herself now. She looked just like a scared little kid. In fact, she even turned on me.
Hello? Mrs. Jackson, how are you? No. Not my Sally. Well, Yeah, no, I can't tell you how I feel right now. I'm going to have to talk to her first. Yes, I'll let you know. Thank you. Sally? Yeah? That was Glenda's mother. She said that you put Glenda up to taking that blouse. Would you do something like that?
No, Mom, I wouldn't do a thing like that. Honest. You know I wouldn't.
Well, I lied my way out of that one, too. Just after that, a policeman came to school and told us about all sorts of stuff they have to catch shoplifters. Like two-way mirrors to watch and make sure you don't steal stuff. And Glenda was all wet. They have hidden cameras all around. Some places even make a video recording of people who take things, so they can't say they didn't do it. Stores have plainclothes detectives walking around. People you never dream are watching you. Some of them look like teenagers themselves.
Did you just buy it? Yes. I don't believe you. I did. Where'd you get it from? The toy department. Okay, come on. I gotta go home. Well, we'll call your parents when we get there, okay?
So I swore off for quite a while. But then I just got bored, I guess. I wanted the excitement, so I started lifting little things at stores where I thought it was easier to get away with it. But it didn't work anymore. It wasn't any fun alone. Maybe that's what made me do what I did. I sure can't figure out any other reason.
Hey, Sally, can I borrow $1? Are you kidding? What for? To buy this phone. I lost my other one on this. Why don't you take it? You mean take it? Yeah, I dare you. Where would I put it? Put it in your hat.
If I only hadn't said it. Just 3 little words, but they sure wrecked our family.
Hey, young man. Young lady, where are you going? Tell me, what are you going to do with this? Huh? You get paid for this? What's the matter? You can't get your time?
They took us down to the station, and because they couldn't reach Mom, they put us in a room. But no matter what they called it, it was jail.
Everything will be okay. They can't do anything to a little kid like you. Everything will be all right. They can't do anything to you. Mommy. It was all my fault. I dared him to.
Sally. Do you realize that what you were doing, Sally, was wrong? You know you should be setting an example for your younger brother. Right?
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Sanders, due to the children's ages, this time I'll refer this case to our juvenile counselor, and he'll be contacting you at a later date and set up an appointment.
I know there's going to be a big black mark on my record from now on, wherever I go and whatever I do. What else they're going to do to me, I still don't know. My parents, I suppose they'll forgive me sometime. That's the way they are. But how long will it take them to ever trust me again?
Whoa, and then the soundtrack just ends. Huh. It's interesting. So big fan of shoplifting films because there's, like a lot of VD films, they are these little micro dramas, usually sometimes told first person, with this narration throughout, and kind of talks about the thrills, talks about the dangers. It's pretty great in that regard. So this next film I got had a lot of paperwork in it. Came with a brochure, front end loader safety by Mesa. Mesa is the Department of Interior Mine Enforcement and Safety Administration. And so this is actually a brochure for the film, to purchase the film. Then there's a letter. It says, notice of purchasers of MSHA films. To complement the MSH film you recently purchased, the accompanying MSHA guidebook should be used by the person showing the film. When the material in the guidebook is used, the film itself becomes a more effective training aid. The Division of Audiovisual Services of MSHA would appreciate any comments concerning the format and the effectiveness of this discussion's leader's guide. And then it gives an address in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So this is, similar to the teacher's guides. So it gives you overview, and then at the end it gives us questions and things that we should address, and about accident reports and all this stuff. Anyways, films weren't just meant to be shown; they were meant to provoke discussion. So the films are often provocative in what they show, and sometimes have open endings. And but the idea is that you want to immediately get whoever's watching the film to kind of think about what they just saw. So this next film is front end loader safety. And we've seen the front end loaders in Shake Hands with Danger, but this is doesn't have a great song to sing along. So here we go.
As our nation's consumption of metals and minerals continues to rise, the mining and milling industries, in an effort to meet this rising need, continue their drive for greater productivity. But as often happens in rapid industrial progress, a big advance in one direction sometimes results in a bigger setback in another. In the case of materials handling and hauling in surface mines, production is increased with the introduction of larger capacity front-end loaders and trucks. But at the same time, the number of operator-incurred accidents is also increased. Nearly one-half of the total surface mine and mill fatalities that occur involve haulage vehicles, such as this front-end loader. From the operator's standpoint, the front-end loader has proved to be one of the most hazardous pieces of equipment being used in the mineral industry today. Although the primary cause of this accident was the operator losing control of the vehicle because of lack of training and experience with this particular type of loader, the accident investigation disclosed other contributing factors. excessive speed, inadequate berm, and operators' failure to wear a seat belt. Not wearing the belt greatly contributed to the severity of the accident, turning what might have been an injury, or less, into a fatality. In an emergency, most operators will tend to act instinctively and reflexively, and if they had previously operated another model with different controls, they are very likely to find themselves confused and in trouble when trying to operate a new or different machine. Therefore, it is important that front-end loaders be operated only by persons competently trained and authorized to handle the particular model being used. It is also important that machines be used for the purpose for which they were designed. Unauthorized use and misuse of the front-end loader has accounted for an alarming number of fatalities. For instance, using a dipper or bucket as a workstage or platform is not a safe practice. Another example of misuse of a front-end loader is that of pushing other vehicles. An operator was fatally injured while steering a disabled front-end loader. A second front-end loader was pushing against the counterweight of the first machine when the bucket slipped over the top, pinning the driver. If a loader or other disabled mobile equipment cannot move under its own power, or whenever towing is necessary, a rigid, properly designed tow bar should be used. Still another recurring and hazardous example of equipment misuse is the unsafe practice of riding in the bucket of a front-end loader.
How about a ride to the shop?
Sure, hop in.
The law and good common sense tell us that men should not ride in buckets or haulage truck beds for the purpose of transportation. Using the loader as a means of transporting men is usually asking for trouble. Lack of common sense leads to unsafe work practices, which in turn is the leading cause of almost all mining accidents. Recently, a front-end loader operator at an open-pit sand and gravel mine was involved in an accident that could only be classified as a case of dangerous work practice. The front-end loader's job was to load sand and gravel into trucks for haulage to the construction site. After loading a haulage truck, the loader operator moved his machine toward the high wall, where sand and gravel was mined from a single 35 to 40-foot high bench. Either a bulldozer pushed the material down from the wall, or it was allowed to cave naturally. The loose and unconsolidated high wall was not sloped to the proper safe angle or repose, and therefore was dangerous. company's safety rules specified that the high banks be pushed down from above with a bulldozer, and that material was not to be mined directly from the high wall with a front-end loader. Federal regulations also state that men shall not work near or under dangerous banks. The operator knew the company's safety rule against using the front-end loader for mining the high wall, and he should have had enough common sense to stay away from a dangerous bank. Unsafe, dangerous work practices waste time, damage equipment, and above all, risk human lives. Lack of training and experience are also serious contributing factors to many front-end loader accidents. This was vividly brought out at one sand and gravel operation where a new employee was assigned to operate a front-end loader, a machine he had never used before.
Okay, Ron, here's your starter switch, your bucket controls, this is your rollback, this is your hoist, your transmission, forward, reverse, here's your gear shift on it. You think you've got that?
The young man had had some experience as a truck driver and seemed mechanically inclined at handling machinery. So the pit foreman instructed one of his more experienced heavy equipment operators to work with him until he was able to operate the front-end loader by himself.
Okay, go ahead and try it.
The heavy equipment operator, who had never had formal instruction or safety training on the equipment himself, observed the new man operating the loader. After watching briefly, he left to return to his regular duties at another pit. The new operator continued the job of feeding the hopper. Even though an individual at first appears confident when operating new equipment, he may not always be sure of the control positions on the machine. Therefore, at a critical moment, he may, through reflex action, push the controls in the wrong direction, causing an accident. This is the main reason for a thorough training program for drivers taking out equipment with which they are not familiar. He seemed to be doing all right for a while, when suddenly, many of the mistakes he made, his failure to maintain control of the vehicle, operating too close to the edge of the ramp, and cutting the wheels too sharply, were due to lack of experience or training in front-end loader operation. This accident also indicated some negligence on the part of the supervisor for assigning the man to a machine he wasn't trained or qualified to operate, and for not seeing that adequate berms were provided on the outer banks of elevated roadways. Elevated ramps or inclines leading up to dumping points are often sloped too steeply. If the ramp was leveled off at the top for a distance of 1 1/2 the length of the loader, and the angle of incline held to the recommended 10% maximum with sloping sides of 30 degrees or less, it would add to the operator's visibility, maneuverability, and safety. And if adequate berms were constructed along the edges of the ramp, the overall safety of dumping operations would be greatly increased.
You've got your bucket in the air. Go on.
travel with your bucket
Past
down and blow a
investigations
smoke
have
in your
pointed
back out
up
of
the
vent.
necessity for rollover protection and seat belts. But most significantly, they have emphasized the critical, growing, industry-wide need for all mine and mill operators to establish a definite, effective, continually functioning safety training program for their company, and to make every effort to prevent accidents by having their employees actively participate in the program.
Give you a little better protection that way and keep you with
A large segment of our mining industry is dependent on the front-end loader. Therefore, if accidents are to be prevented, proper safety training and instruction of the operator is of the utmost importance and should be started now.
I can check that gear in a minute, so don't touch anything, okay?
Hey! Get down from there! Now! Hey! Turn it over! What if it bumped that control by accident? You'd be mincemeat by now. What have I told you? You don't work on equipment when the engine's running.
Well, I told him not to touch anything. All right, I guess I wasn't thinking.
You weren't thinking? You mean you'll work on engines and machinery and not think of your own personal safety? Here. Shake hands with danger.
Shake hands with danger. Meet a man you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety. Now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on a dozier with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. Although I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal are what made me Three-Fingered Joe. I've seen mechanics burning and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute. I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment and spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with danger. some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Finger Joe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had to show the Shake Hands with Danger song that my wife had commissioned by Scott Phillips and his friend Greg, because I was showing a bunch of construction equipment safety, and they had some good little stinger songs. They had some good accidents in there, too, that they created. But no, like, catchy songs, so I felt like I had to show that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. I think that North Carolina is probably going to be going into lockdown very soon. So please wear your masks. Really, come on. It's not that hard. It's so easy. If you like what you saw, you can hit like, you can buy us some coffee, and you can watch other things we've got and buy DVDs from AV Geeks. I brought up the lockdown because all of us are trying to make Christmas plans, and so we're going to just keep broadcasting. We're going to keep doing this because things are just, the numbers aren't great. So all of us will need distractions, and we'll just keep watching more educational films. I got a bunch. I've got, so many. We've only seen, how many so far? What's the count? We've only seen about 1,019 films, and I have over 30,000. So we'll just keep going. Everybody take care of yourself, and please, take care of people close to you. Reach out to them. This is a rough time for people. Christmas is rough anyways, but reach out to those friends and family that you haven't talked to in a while and just say hi, just check in. Also, if you are feeling low, reach out to your friends and family as well. I do appreciate how much you guys comment and tune in and kind of support each other. It's really, really sweet and really nice, and I think it's super important during this time. And the fact that we're getting together is because we like watching these goofy old movies. So thank you for that. It means a great deal for me, and I'm sure it means more for people out there. So please rewind as well. And I will see you again tomorrow. Everybody take care of yourselves. All right, bye.